Hi friends, I hope that you're having a wonderful day today. My name is Luciano and I make videos on the internet. We are continuing a series that we've begun in the past where we talk about fallacies, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about fallacies that I sometimes commit because no one is perfect, and the key to becoming a better debater and argumenter and also to becoming more persuasive and more critical thinking is self-reflection and working on yourself. If you are new to my channel, I am so excited that you decided to stop by and we have the chance to get to know each other a little bit. And if you are a returning friend, I'm so excited that you're here and that we get to have the chance to get to know each other just a little bit better. Let's go ahead and start to talk about fallacies. As you can see, we are on the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I decided to not have the full thing in view because most of the page is just empty white space for reasons that confuse and elude me. But we are going to go ahead and jump on down so that way we can start to take a look at the first fallacy that I wanted us to talk about today. We're going to be taking a look at the genetic fallacy. This is a fallacy that I sometimes commit. It is a fallacy that many people are guilty of, and it is very easy to fall into it if you start to notice patterns in a source. But essentially what this is if the critic attempts to discredit or support a claim or argument because of its origin, when the origins are irrelevant. Now, there are layers to this. But essentially, if you take a look at an article that is published on a conservative website and you discredit it solely because of the fact that it is on a conservative website, that is, unfortunately, an example of the genetic fallacy. At the same time, if you are discrediting something because it is an opinion piece, that is also an example of the genetic fallacy, and that's something that many people do as well. This is a very easy fallacy to commit, but as I previously mentioned, there's layers to this. If you are only skeptical of a source's claims rather than discrediting them completely because of the source, that may not actually be an example of the genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy is when you try to say that an argument is more likely to be true because of the fact that it comes from a certain place, or if you discredit it completely based off of its source, rather than having some level of skepticism to it. Because there are cases where being skeptical of a claim based on its source makes sense. If you are trying to talk about evolution, for example, and your source is someone who wrote an article for Answers in Genesis, and the article is published on Answers in Genesis, you would be right to be skeptical, though at the same time this does not mean that you should discount the claim completely. Understanding that is important when you want to learn to better identify examples of this, and when you, like me, want to get better at not committing this particular fallacy. Another fallacy that it is very easy to commit in real life is style over substance. This particular definition of it is interesting because it focuses on the idea that style will add merit and weight to an argument, but usually the way that I see this argument presented in real life is the exact opposite. The idea that the way someone is presenting an argument detracts from the arguments rather than being something that is helpful for it. This is related to the argument of tone policing, in which someone is critiquing an argument based on their perceptions as to the way the argument is being presented, and they are launching character attacks based off of the nature of their opponents and their particular attitudes and mechanisms of delivery, rather than actually focusing on the argument itself. So, style over substance, the way that this works is if you see someone who is very charismatic, if you see someone who is very well dressed, very handsome, and they are presenting an argument and they're speaking eloquently, they're speaking in a commanding voice, and they maybe have a cool presentation behind them, you might think more of their arguments, even if their argument is nonsense, because of the effort that they're taking to make it look and seem cool. This is something that in real life often happens in politics. Oftentimes, people who have objectionable views will do their best to judge themselves up and will do their best to look prim and proper and be like, yes, my views may be objectionable, but I am over here and I am debating them and I am well dressed and I am well spoken, and that lends weight to my arguments. My arguments can't be silly if I'm the one presenting them, and I am doing so while being dapperly dressed and while speaking politely and professionally. That is a very solid example of the style over substance fallacy. I do plan to talk about the tone policing fallacy and the tone policing arguments in the future, because those are very important arguments that people will absolutely make in real life. I promise you, you have almost certainly seen those types of fallacies. If you are someone who is an adult and you are living in the United States and you are watching my videos, I can't speak for other sorts of people, but I have seen those sorts of arguments all the time, and I know that at least where I live, it is something that is fairly common in real life. I think that understanding the style over substance fallacy and being able to identify it is something that is very important. It allows you to think much more critically when you learn to focus on the actual argument itself, and when you learn to sort of detract the argument from any other context that may influence your opinion of it. If you are someone who is a Christian and you're seeing another Christian make an argument, that may compel you to take the argument a little bit more seriously than you would. And that's an example of the genetic fallacy. But if you are someone who is watching someone who is very pretty make outlandish claims, then you may think that the claims are a little bit better because of the prettiness of the person. And while many people think that they don't think like that, I promise you almost everyone at some point in our lives has made a mistake that would be a sort of style over substance fallacy. This is something that is very important to be able to identify, so that way we are a little bit more resistant to it and we are able to think just a little bit more critically in our daily lives. Having critical thinking skills can be incredibly important and can allow us to not fall victims to very silly claims. It can also allow us to protect others in our friend spaces, in our communities, and in our groups from falling victim to detrimental, harmful arguments that may have real and devastating impact on their lives. I am enjoying talking about different kinds of fallacies, and I really like the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy's list of fallacies. I will say that this doesn't include every single fallacy that I'm aware of, and there are many fallacies here that I was not aware of before I started watching this. So definitely keep your eyes open for the series if you enjoy having conversations about logical argumentation and about being a better critical thinker and being better at identifying fallacies. It's also important that we don't overemphasize the importance of fallacies, because the reality is many people are going to make fallacies, including ourselves, in our daily lives. And while it is important to be aware of them, we cannot overthink them and become just sort of scared to make arguments in general just because we're worried that we might make a mistake. Instead, what we need to do is be honest. We need to be careful, and we need to learn from our mistakes when we make them, so that way we can continue moving forward, developing new beliefs that are hopefully more in accordance with reality and more properly reflect both the human condition and the world that we live in as accurately and as thoughtfully as possible. I'm so excited to continue making these videos, and I can't wait to talk to you guys again about other logical fallacies and about ways to become better argumenters in the future. Bye-bye, everyone.